It was a quiet Sunday morning when my mother-in-law came over for a visit. I was excited to spend the day with her and my husband, Mark. He'd been working so much lately, and this was a rare opportunity for the three of us to relax and enjoy each other's company. She arrived with her usual warm smile and brought a box of pastries, which, as always, smelled delicious. After a few minutes of small talk, she offered to make us coffee. Mark and I are both coffee lovers, so of course we accepted. She made her usual round of coffee, one for herself, one for Mark, and one for me. She had a special way of making coffee, always adding just a touch of cinnamon and a dash of vanilla extract, but this time, something seemed off. As soon as she set the cup in front of me, I noticed a strange smell. It wasn't the comforting, familiar aroma of the coffee I was used to. This had something different, something almost chemical. I hesitated for a moment, not wanting to offend her, but the smell was so overpowering that I couldn't ignore it. I took a small sip, hoping the taste would be better than the smell, but it wasn't. It was almost bitter and had an unusual aftertaste that made me wrinkle my nose. I didn't want to hurt her feelings, so I tried to hide my discomfort, but I couldn't shake the strange feeling in my stomach. Mark, who had already taken a sip of his coffee, seemed fine, so I thought maybe it was just me. But as I glanced over at my cup again, I couldn't help but feel suspicious. There was something off about it, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I sat there for a moment, staring at my coffee cup, trying to figure out what had gone wrong. The smell still lingered in my nose, and the taste had left an odd, almost sour aftertaste in my mouth. I didn't want to say anything to my mother-in-law. She was so kind, and I didn't want to hurt her feelings. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore how uncomfortable the whole situation made me feel. I decided to take a risk. I casually glanced at Mark, who was sipping his coffee without a care in the world. I couldn't help but notice how normal his cup of coffee looked, the rich brown color, the steam rising gently from the mug. It all seemed so right. So without thinking much more about it, I quietly swapped mugs with him while he wasn't paying attention. He was deep in conversation with my mother-in-law, telling her about his latest project at work. I took a sip from his mug, hoping for the same familiar, comforting taste I was used to. And to my relief, it was exactly what I expected. Smooth, warm, with just the right balance of bitterness and sweetness. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was just a little switch, but it made all the difference. The coffee tasted like coffee again. Mark didn't notice the swap at all. He continued chatting with his mom, completely unaware of what had just happened. I sat back, trying to relax, but the feeling of unease didn't completely go away. Something about the strange smell and taste still nagged at me, and I began to wonder, what had my mother-in-law put in my coffee? As we continued to talk, I couldn't stop thinking about the strange coffee. My mind kept circling back to that odd taste and smell. Something didn't add up, and it was eating away at me. I had been trying to shake it off, but the feeling of suspicion was starting to grow. What if my mother-in-law had put something in my coffee, something that I wasn't aware of? The thought made my stomach turn, but I didn't want to cause a scene. Mark seemed so comfortable, sipping his coffee and talking to his mom, who was happily recounting stories of her childhood. Everything seemed so normal on the surface, and I didn't want to make things weird by drawing attention to a cup of coffee. Maybe it was just my overactive imagination, but still, I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something was off. I had to know what was in that cup. Mark excused himself to the bathroom, and the moment he left the room, I decided to seize the opportunity. I quickly picked up my cup again, but this time I was determined to get to the bottom of it. My mother-in-law was sitting on the couch, engrossed in her phone, so she didn't notice me as I carefully peered inside the mug. I sniffed the contents again, this time more deliberately. The strange odor was still there, though it wasn't as strong as before. I swirled the liquid in my cup, watching the dark coffee shift in the mug. I couldn't help but feel a little paranoid, but the more I thought about it, the more I was convinced that something wasn't right. The taste had been bitter in a way that was unnatural, like some chemical residue had left a mark on the coffee. My thoughts raced. Then, it hit me. Cinnamon. I had seen her put a dash of cinnamon in the coffee before, but this time, something else lingered. It wasn't just cinnamon. There was another sharp, almost metallic tang in the back of my throat, one that reminded me of the industrial-strength cleaning products used at my old office building. My heart skipped a beat. Could it be that my mother-in-law had accidentally mixed something in with the cinnamon, perhaps some cleaning agent or even a foreign substance? I immediately began to feel a little dizzy. My stomach churned, and I had to set the mug down before I lost my composure. I needed to find out what was going on, but I didn't want to accuse her of anything without being sure. My thoughts raced, and I became aware of the tension building in my chest. It wasn't just the strange coffee anymore, it was the fact that something didn't feel right. This was not just a simple mistake, it felt intentional. But why would she do that, and how far would she go to cover it up? I glanced nervously over at the hallway, waiting for Mark to return. I was about to come clean to him, tell him what had happened, when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Sitting on the edge of the kitchen counter, half hidden behind a paper towel, was a small bottle of cleaning solution. The label was slightly worn, but I could still make out the words "industrial-grade cleaner." My hands trembled as I moved closer to inspect it, my mind spinning with questions. How could I have missed this? Had it been there all along? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the evidence was right in front of me. I felt like I had stumbled onto something suspicious. It wasn't just about the coffee anymore. This was a full-blown mystery, and I had no idea where it would lead. I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the cleaning solution bottle, my mind racing. It was almost impossible to believe what I was seeing. How could my mother-in-law have possibly confused cleaning solution with the ingredients for coffee? The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. That strange metallic taste, the bitter aftertaste, the strange smell. It was all starting to fall into place. It wasn't cinnamon or vanilla extract in my coffee at all. It had been some kind of chemical. My pulse quickened. I suddenly felt nauseous, my stomach churning from both the potential danger of what I had just ingested and the sheer betrayal that this could be deliberate. I had trusted her, and now I couldn't help but question everything. I had to figure out what happened and confront her, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions too quickly. I knew I needed to be careful. If I accused her without proof, things would spiral out of control. I had no idea why she would do something like this, but I couldn't ignore what I had discovered. Just as I was about to put the bottle back and consider my next steps, Mark came back into the room. His expression was relaxed, completely unaware of the turmoil going on in my mind. He sat down at the kitchen table, oblivious to what I had just uncovered. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. I had to be strategic about this. If I confronted my mother-in-law in front of Mark, it would likely create unnecessary drama, but I couldn't let this go unnoticed. Something had happened, and I needed to get to the bottom of it. I knew I couldn't handle this alone. "Hey, Mark," I said, my voice trembling slightly, but I tried to keep it steady. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" He raised an eyebrow, concern flickering in his eyes. "What's going on? You look a little off." "I think something is wrong with the coffee your mom made," I said, trying to sound calm. "I noticed something strange about it, and I'm not sure, but I think she might have put something in it. Something unsafe." Mark frowned, but I could tell he was skeptical. "What do you mean unsafe? Are you sure? She always makes coffee for us, and you've had it before. Maybe you're just overreacting." I shook my head, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. "I'm not overreacting. I noticed something on the counter earlier, a cleaning solution bottle. It was hidden behind a paper towel, but it was definitely there." Mark looked at me, trying to piece everything together. "Are you saying she—" "I don't know what to think," I said, cutting him off, "but I need you to help me figure this out. I don't know why she would do this, but I need to know what happened." Mark's face went pale as the realization sank in. He stood up, his hands running through his hair. "This doesn't make any sense. Let's talk to her. Maybe there's an explanation for all of this." The three of us sat down, and I asked my mother-in-law to join us in the living room. My heart was racing, and I couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. What if she denied everything? What if she had done something that could put us all in danger? When she entered the room, her smile faltered when she saw the tension in the air. "Is something wrong?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. I didn't waste any time. "Why did you put cleaning solution in my coffee, Mom?" I asked, my voice sharp but calm. Her face paled. She looked from me to Mark, her eyes wide with shock. What? No, I didn't," she stammered, trying to explain herself, but her words didn't make sense. She was clearly rattled, and the confusion on her face was evident. "Why was there cleaning solution in the kitchen then?" Mark asked, his tone softer now. "I saw the bottle. Why would that be there?" My mother-in-law took a deep breath and looked down at her hands. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I'm so sorry. I had just finished cleaning the counter and I must have gotten the mugs mixed up. I grabbed the wrong bottle and put it in the coffee without even thinking. I didn't realize it until after you mentioned it. I didn't mean to hurt you." The explanation hit me like a ton of bricks. It wasn't malicious, but the accident had almost led to something dangerous. I felt my body tense up as the relief and frustration washed over me in waves. She had made a terrible mistake, but at least it wasn't intentional. "We're just trying to be careful," I said, trying to calm down. "Please, just be more mindful next time. I trust you, but I don't ever want something like this to happen again." She nodded, her face full of regret. "I am so sorry. I never meant to cause any harm." Mark looked at me, his eyes filled with concern. I could tell he was relieved that there wasn't something more sinister going on, but I also knew this was a conversation that needed to happen. We had to be more careful and make sure boundaries were respected. As the night went on, we managed to smooth things over, but I couldn't shake the lingering discomfort. I had learned something important that evening. Sometimes the smallest of actions can have big consequences, and it's always best to trust your instincts.